is a branch of the Disney empire that is known for going against the Disney grain. And from a technological standpoint, as well as artistic, Brave is quite possibly the best looking film Pixar has ever released, at least until they released Coco. Pixar has always been about innovation, exploration, and pushing boundaries. So when I first saw Brave, it delivered on that front but failed to go against the Disney grain like Pixar has been known to do. This is a film that I've been asked to review since I started this channel, and frankly, it's one I've been avoiding. I know that some people are genuinely interested in my thoughts on animated films that are set in Scotland. They want to know what I think of how my culture was portrayed and how accurate the movie was and all this. And that's all fine and dandy. This allows me to give a different perspective on a film like this. But I don't consider myself an expert on Scottish mythology, nor do I think I am the best historian ever. Though Brave is a film I have spoken about briefly before, I avoided making a full review on it because I didn't want people to assume the video would be based purely on culture, nationality, or historical inaccuracies. Though there are a lot of those in the movie, there is so much more to talk about than just that. Disney adaptations of classic tales are hardly known for how accurate they are to the source material, and though Brave is a so-called original story instead of being based on a fairy tale, it is based in a world embedded in Scottish mythology and folk tales. Not that Brave took advantage of any of that. If anything, Brave felt like a huge step backwards to me, and didn't take the chances that the promotional material implied it had. Oh, but Merida is so empowered and goes against the grain of a typical Disney princess. Yeah, the movie also has conflicting emotions of gender equality. It's not okay for a girl to have a bow, but it's okay for a man to pinch a woman's butt. Yeah, okay. Movies set in Scotland have an advantage from a story standpoint in that Scotland is steeped in ancient myth. There is a beauty to Scotland's landscape that is ever-changing. It's both beautiful and dangerous. Scottish folklore, however, is something that hasn't been depicted in film too much in mainstream media. Irish folklore has, however, with movies like Song of the Sea and The Secret of Kells. Scottish mythology and folklore is different to Greek mythology, for example, because it deals with various aspects of nature and the ever-changing seasons. In its early development, Brave was set in winter, which to me hints that the story was going to revolve around Beara, the goddess of winter, who formed the mountains and lochs of Scotland's landscape, and is the most feared deity of Scottish mythology. She is also known as at once creator and destroyer, gentle and fierce, mother and nurturer. Why do I bring all this up? Well, Brave is oriented around the roles of powerful women. Might they be a queen or an old hag? I just wonder why the story didn't follow Scottish mythology and tell the story of Beara if they wanted to make a movie about a strong Scottish warrior princess. It just seems they missed something that was right there in front of them. The movie doesn't live up to its title as much as it simply ticks a box that Pixar has been unable to tick off since 1995. Make a film with a female lead. So of course, instead of being inventive like Pixar usually is with their films, they make a Disney princess film. Not only that, but we have a Disney princess film where the princess doesn't want to be a princess, who is free-spirited and independent, and a bit of a tomboy. Oh, and, arranged marriage that they're being forced into. Yeah, because we don't have enough princess films already, or enough arranged marriages in Disney movies either. Pixar, you're supposed to be different, remember? But I guess making a film with a female protagonist without making her a princess, or without throwing magic into the mix, or actually taking complete advantage of the mythology and folklore of the country that the movie is set in, is just too gosh darn difficult. Brave is a film where the story relies heavily on the setting and culture, but on very little else. Take away the Scottish setting and accents, you're left with something we have seen several times before from Disney. Not only that, but take away the Scottish setting and half the jokes have to be taken out. I know Brave never claimed to want to show the Scottish culture in a good light, but kilt jokes, haggis jokes, accent jokes? Yeah, empowering, groundbreaking, and different. Right. This wouldn't be the first time Disney made a film about a warrior princess either. Though Mulan is not royalty, she is part of the Disney princess lineup, and until characters like Rapunzel, Moana, and Merida came along, Mulan was the only Disney heroine that actually fought in a battle instead of having to be constantly rescued by a male counterpart. I know Disney have turned the whole damsel in distress thing on its head before, but here it feels like they could have told a story about a princess not needing a prince without the plot actually revolving around that. With all the myths and stories available to them, why did they just do the whole princess that doesn't want to be a princess or get married thing? If you want a movie that depicts a girl being brave for the right reasons, then watch Disney's Mulan. Like Merida, she exists in a culture and time that is vastly different from our modern multicultural society, and for the most part, different from any other culture depicted in the majority of Disney movies. Both characters are 16 years old, although Mulan might be 17, but picky. Highly independent, and both of them are being forced into arranged marriages and have both their parents counting on them to uphold the family honour and cultural traditions. True, Merida has more pressure to conform to than Mulan, since she is royalty and also being offered up as some sort of prize to be won, but Mulan had far more at stake and more to fight against other than her own needs and wants. Her country was at war. Her father was being forced to join the army again, which would have killed him. So she disguises herself as a man and joins the army to save her father's life, essentially sacrificing herself to save her father. If she is discovered, she would be put to death. But more importantly, it was very likely she would be killed in battle. Mulan is at a point in her life where she wants to honour and respect her parents and their culture and religion, but she is unsure of who she is and struggles with figuring out where she fits. Though there is some magic in the movie, it is never used as a convenience to help Mulan, but rather provide her with moral support from Mushu. Mulan never sought out the magic or assistance herself. Magic was never used as a plot device for any lessons learned. For instance, she wasn't turned into a man. She disguised herself as a man. The risk she took was the bravest thing any Disney heroine has ever done. Apart from Meg in Disney's Hercules, who stood up to the friggin' god of the underworld and Lord of the Dead, and gave her life to save the man she loved, and yet will never be a Disney princess, because heaven forbid Disney actually has a princess who actually has a past, and is, for want of a better phrase, not innocent anymore, essentially killing that stupid love at first sight nonsense, proving that love is not so straightforward and simple. But no, let's keep repeating the I don't want to be a princess, I don't want to get married thing, and still pretend that this is somehow empowering. Merida didn't have as much at stake as Mulan did. Her motivations were that she wasn't ready for marriage and was being forced to be someone she wasn't. Now, it was technically brave of her to step out into the archery contest to fight for her right not to marry, but it was for her own selfish reasons. But even with the archery scene, it still feels like something we've seen before in Disney. In Disney's Robin Hood, Prince John holds an archery competition to trick Robin Hood into coming out of hiding, knowing he couldn't resist the chance to show off his skills. Even the final shot that Robin took is just like Merida's, splitting the arrow in two. Yes, symbolism, I get it, blah blah blah. Now, we would have been able to take the threat of war more seriously if the clans weren't depicted as buffoons fighting like a pub brawl. Even Merida herself makes a joke about expecting their declarations of war in the morning. So even though there is something at stake, how can the audience be expected to believe it if the main character makes a joke out of it and fights break out over nothing? Imagine if Shan Yu and the Han army in Mulan weren't threatening at all, but instead fought like the clansmen did in Brave. Would Mulan herself be considered a hero in the end? No, because the tone of the story would be more comedic instead of dramatic. The very act of Merida refusing to marry one of the clan lord's sons would start a war. It wasn't until she accidentally, quote-unquote, turned her mother into a bear for her own selfish reasons that she felt any regret. Oh wait, no, she didn't! She still didn't hold herself accountable for that, blaming the witch instead of herself. Merida is a girl who is very sure of herself, but has very little respect for her culture as well as for her parents. It makes it difficult to relate to when your main character is a selfish, angsty brat instead of what the film promised to deliver, a brave female warrior princess, who just so happens to also be Scottish. That is precisely the problem with this movie. Bravery and courage is the choice and willingness to confront agony, pain, danger, uncertainty, or intimidation. It is not the choice of disrespecting and disobeying your parents or guardians, or ignoring your responsibilities, or not being accountable for your mistakes. Take away her royal status and her nationality, and we're left with a rebellious teenager who selfishly uses a magic spell to change her mum so she doesn't have to get married to someone she doesn't love. Does that sound like someone who is brave to you? If I may, I think Mufasa from Disney's The Lion King says it the best. Being brave doesn't mean you go looking for trouble. Merida isn't brave as much as she is rebellious. She is a teenager, so yeah, she is going to be selfish and angsty, but you can't use that to excuse her behaviour when Mulan was also 16 in her story, which follows a similar path of rebelling against her family and culture. However, she did so to save people she loved. Merida rebelled to keep her freedom, not to earn or fight for it. So what is the consequence for using witchcraft to get what you want? Well, according to Disney logic, you either accidentally turn an emperor into a llama instead of killing them, waste 16 years of your life searching for the princess you cursed, risk never seeing your family again and losing your voice forever, or you get turned into a bear. Though turning characters into animals is not a new thing, obviously, that's not the only problem with this. In Emperor's New Groove, Kuzco is an emperor who is selfish and self-serving, so when he's turned into a llama by accident, we feel he deserves it. But having him still able to speak allows us to see him change as the movie goes on. In Brother Bear, Kenai is turned into a bear to learn about how important it is to be selfless and caring for others. In Brave, Eleanor is turned into a bear because, I don't know, the witch had a bear fetish or something. Or it was the only spell she knew how to do. Let's go with that. The film takes extreme steps to make the focus something we have seen countless times before. Overbearing parent and rebellious child wanted to break with tradition or wanting to prove to their parent that they are capable of more than their parents realize. And the parents need to let go and give their child independence, blah, blah, blah. Oh, wait. Overbearing parent. I get it. That's not funny. Problem is, this is something that has been done repeatedly in other animated movies and done better. Though I'll give Brave this. The relationship shown between Merida and her mother Eleanor accurately depicted the struggles between a mother and a teenage daughter, which we haven't really seen before. Merida takes more after her father Fergus than her mother in both her personality and her looks, inheriting his ginger hair and fiery disposition. The problem with their relationship is that the conflict stems from neither of them being willing to listen to the other. This is something that isn't really solved as the film goes on. Instead, their relationship glosses over this and relies on visual gags and slapstick to get their relationship to the point where they do see eye to eye. When Eleanor is turned into a bear, she is forced to listen to Merida and trust her, and yet Merida doesn't open up to her mother about anything during this time. And here we come to the biggest mistake that Brave made. If you're going to make a movie where a main character turns into an animal in order to learn a lesson, have them talk so we can relate to their situation. The point I'm making is, if you want to make a movie about two characters who need to see eye to eye to solve conflict and to repair a bond, having one of them unable to talk kind of ruins any chances of that happening. If Eleanor was able to talk, it would make the moments of when she becomes a bear on the inside feel much more dramatic, and the ticking clock of the spell being permanent would be made far more intense. Imagine if Kuzco couldn't talk to Pacha, or if Kenai couldn't understand what Koda was saying. We needed a scene between the two of them that showed them bonding on a deeper level than just a bloody fishing montage. No scene between Merida and Eleanor allows us time to invest other than the flashback scene and the prologue, which for me just wasn't enough to get invested in their relationship. The trailers for Brave implied that Merida wanted to change her fate, but in the film, she wanted the spell to change her mother. Even after Eleanor eats the cake that the witch gave Merida and she falls ill, Merida is still only focused on calling off the engagement and not about her mother's well-being. We are supposed to like Merida, right? Right? Overall, my feelings for Brave are mixed in a lot of ways. I enjoy the movie for how different it is in style when comparing it to other Pixar movies, especially with the character designs. But the movie suffered from awkward writing as well as relying too heavily on its setting and culture, as well as inevitable stereotype jokes instead of developing interesting characters and stories. It has good intentions and does teach the moral it meant to, but the delivery doesn't quite hit the bullseye for me. It's a reminder to me that the nationality of a character should never be mistaken for a character trait, and that of course should never be made into a joke at the expense of a character. So although Pixar did try to break the mold of what an animated princess is, they're the only animated studio that actually came close to... Oh wait, disenchantment is a thing now. Never mind, I'm Mad Munchkin. Stay creative!